works for me. Okay.
All right. So as we heard this task, the initial thing that popped into my mind was, how do we engage the disengaged student? And so when Robin and I sat together, that was the question that came up, and we just immediately were able to have a banter back and forth. So we thought we'd try to capture that on this video of what that looks like.
Correct. So my first thought when you said, Teresa, how to engage the unengaged or disengaged student was to, it really has to start at the very beginning when you first meet the students, to build that, that climate in your classroom, or that culture in your classroom. I think climate might be the right word. And so how do you begin? How do you begin to build that type of environment?
Right, absolutely. And I think, I think we had some conversations with Charmaine too. It's we think old school. We think back to maybe when we were in school, where it was, if someone was disengaging, we automatically assumed something naughty was going on. We called that student out. And we're recognizing more and more that, first of all, we have some opportunities to help to alleviate the disengagement, but we also have an opportunity to seek to understand, to not jump to the conclusion that a student is purposely not engaged in our conversations because they choose to, but maybe because something bigger is going on. So how do we build that relationship where students feel comfortable in order to let us help them to avoid that disengagement? So we have phone policies, right? It's absolutely not acceptable for students to be on their cell phones during class. However, I have a very low-key policy that I obviously have the same, right? I obviously am not on my phone during class. I'm the professional. However, I have before been on my phone when I knew I had something major going on. If I sent a kid to school with a stomach ache and I happen to get that call from the nurse, I politely say, I need to take this. Every other day I don't, but that one day, once a year, once every 2 years that I need to, I extend that to my students. Just talk to me. If you have a spouse or a significant other or a brother or a sister in the military and you only get that call certain times, I'm gonna let you, but come tell me, like, have that conversation with me. And it just becomes this open that I've actually had students go, I might look at my phone today, and the only reason I am is because my mom's going into surgery, so please accept my apology if it appears rude. Of course, of course. Now, every other day, they don't need to be checking their phones for their Instagram, right? So it just becomes, I recognize you as a human being. We'll have things outside of our learning environment, but let's make this a place where this is our priority. And when other parts of life happen, let's be in communication of that. Let's give and take in that, so that we respect each other. And I don't automatically go to the assumption that this student is disengaging from this. They must not care what I have to say. They must not be interested. They must be a naughty student. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and I totally agree. And I think it's important to stress that communication piece always. From the very beginning, the first time you meet the students, just communicate with me, and say it a few times, because I have students who are shy or hesitant to talk to the instructor or whatever it is, intimidated or whatever. I don't think I'm intimidating, but in any case, just encourage them to communicate, because I have a heart and I get it. Like you said, life happens, and I'm human. It's okay. We understand. But if you don't tell me, I don't know. And then I have to wonder, what was that about, or whatever. So communication is huge.
And it's interesting that you made that comment about being intimidated, because it is interesting. There is this thing that we hold all the knowledge and we hold all the control and power, but in some ways they have to be responsible for their own learning, and they need to think about how they're going to handle this in their high school classroom or fifth grade classroom. That sometimes kids get off track, not for any other reason than there's other things that are in their space. Makes me think back to Maslow, right? It's hard to think and it's hard to learn when you're hungry. It's hard to think and hard to learn when you're thinking, oh, when's that nurse gonna call me? Or when is my kid gonna say, Mom, I need to be picked up? Doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. And when we recognize and realize that a human component, and then they see us more as human, that I'm going to need some grace once in a while, and therefore I extend my grace to you as human beings, because eventually we will be colleagues. Right now you are my student, but I want you to be walking alongside me and supporting your students, all of our future students, to be able to engage in a lesson because they want to be there, because they have something to offer, and know that the humanness of them will be acknowledged and respected.
Wow, I couldn't have said that any better. That was beautiful.
I like it. I think that's good. I think this is a conversation, Robin, you and I can have for a week. And I think there could be more and more, but I think that kind of maybe highlights and sets the tone for our fellow participants of kind of the idea that we're going with, and how that really encapsulates, if that's even the right word, principled innovation, you know,